To begin with, somebody asked me how my Easter was. Video quality on this isn't great, but it'll do the job. This is at my 4-year-old's, I guess preschool is what you'd call it. If you're not sure which one he is, you will be very sure here in a moment. He's a very precocious child.
Yeah, the whole shot.
Ready, Mark?
That's it.
Was he not feeling it?
He gets actually super self-conscious. He was very self-conscious that his brother had a play that day, so Mom and Grandma went to the play, and then his grandfather and I went to his thing, and he was super not feeling our presence. So I went over there and I picked him up, and we got some eggs, but yeah. It was, I was like, man, I could have predicted this. And yeah, so that's how that went. But it was pretty funny. Anyway, okay. I don't know why I got a pen. Let's talk about this. I feel terrible. Like, I don't feel well. Yeah. It didn't hit me until about 9:15, so it was in no way at any point where I could have hit any of you up with, say, an email. So I didn't. I just figured, well, most of you are going to be here anyway. Let's go ahead and meet, talk about the paper. All that is to say, we will probably be leaving in short order. But don't get too excited. You can be excited in a minute, just not yet. What we're going to do first, and I want you to try to honestly inhabit this for a moment, okay? Because I do think this could be helpful for most of you anyway. Any questions about the paper, or thoughts, or concerns, or confusions? And I say this all the time, and I mean it. It happens legit every time. If you have a question right now in your head, someone else has that question too, and they don't even know it. Every time one of you comes up to me after class, you ask me a question, it's like, damn it, that would have gone really well in class. That would have helped some people out. So I mean it when I say, if you have a question, it's not just your question. Please share it with the class. It would benefit us greatly. Go for it.
I feel like I connect on like retreading on the same language a lot, or like re-emphasizing the same points, and I don't know how to get around that per se. Like I feel like when I was writing, I was like, oh, like John is fighting something within himself to change his mindset to get his wife back, as well as like terrorists.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's sort of two things you can say to that. And this is without us looking at your paper, but I saw Arlie kind of nod when you said that, so she seems to have a similar concern. Or she has a similar opinion about your paper, which is interesting. Yeah, it's kind of shit. Something one of my comp teachers actually told me a long time ago, because that's when I took comp. You can be repetitive, you don't want to be redundant. And what that means is, because again, I don't harp on this because I don't want you guys to feel like I'm insulting you all the time. You guys are largely inexperienced with this stuff. Writing in general, but argument and all the things we talk about, you don't do it a lot, So you don't have a great kind of weather vane for like, is this repetitive, is this redundant? But an actual classical, thousands of years old, sort of pillar of argument is repetition. Now again, that can go too far to the point where it becomes redundant. If you don't know what redundant means, it's like repetitive to the point of being frustrating or annoying. It's like, God damn it, we get it. That's redundant, okay? But repetitive is just, I'm gonna make the point again, but in a slightly different way, or I'm gonna show you this other aspect of the point, right? If you're doing that in subsequent paragraphs, you're probably okay. If you're legit only making this like exactly the same point again and again, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. Now again, there's different ways to solve that. Sometimes it is, well, I happen to have pulled evidence in different paragraphs that are the same. Probably shouldn't do that. You probably have to lose one of those paragraphs. Or I've pulled evidence that is similar, and I talk about it in similar ways, but because there's some difference, I should highlight that difference that will probably get me to a related but different point. Does that make sense? And again, it all starts with your evidence. So if you go back and you just break out, or here's like what I'm quoting or whatever in this paragraph, here's the same thing in this paragraph, pull them out and say, are they entirely the same? If so, then you probably have a problem. And if not, well then what is that difference? How can I talk about it? It will almost always serve you well. Not always, but almost always serve you very well to think about that difference, because that's going to build upon the argument you already have. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay. But when in doubt, again, it's natural if you're at all critical of your own work to kind of worry you're being a little bit repetitive. That's fine. But again, if it goes super far, then it becomes redundant, and then yeah, you gotta lose stuff. Okay. Good question. And at least one person shared your question because she nodded. So, other questions? Anything at all? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so how do you write a topic sentence again? Because every time I try to start one, it just always ends up being not good.
Okay. Not good can mean a lot of things. To keep it super basic first, and then we can expand upon this. All a topic sentence is, well, I'll ask you guys first. What is a topic sentence meant to do? Does anybody know? Oh God. Do what now? Yes. Ideally. So, again, this is a bit of a chicken egg scenario if you're familiar with that. But your topic sentence should do two things. One, it should sum up your paragraph, whatever your paragraph is about. But then two, it should be an argument because your paragraph should be making an argument, right? If, for instance, you sum up your paragraph and you feel like you've done a pretty good job, but then you go back and look at that topic sentence and it's no kind of claim, it's no kind of argument that requires proof, well, that probably tells you something about your paragraph, right? So sometimes the topic sentence is the problem, sometimes it's just a symptom, right? So it depends. But another way you can write a bad topic sentence is it could be like really long, it could be like really just ugly, like this big Frankenstein's monster where you're trying to throw a bunch of language at the problem, right? What I would tell you is the sort of quick and dirty way to come up with a topic sentence. Usually, if you guys are gonna have an argument, I say you guys, this is anybody, this is me, anybody doing this stuff that we're doing. If you're gonna have an argument, it's gonna be in the bottom third of your body paragraph. It won't always be there because you don't always have an argument. And again, that's a problem. But if you have one, it's almost always gonna show up in the bottom third because you've introduced your evidence, you've talked about it to some degree. Now, if you don't talk about it enough, you also won't have an argument. But if you talk about it enough and you investigate it in the ways that we've been practicing all semester, you will at least begin to arrive at an argument, okay? So if from the jump, your big problem with topic sentences is just, what the fuck am I talking about? What is my argument? Hunt in that bottom third. That's where you want to look. And again, it may need expanding. It may need further explanation, but it will be there if it's anywhere. And at that point, then you can say, all right, how do I try to sum this up in a sentence? Even if it's not great, take a swing, because some of you don't do that, by the way, and get it to the top of the paragraph. In terms of making it better, I mean, again, that depends on the sentence that that we're talking about specifically, but I used to have a formula I would give you guys, and I kind of stopped because I feel like it gets really convoluted. I could give it to you now. Well, I can do it really quick. So all you need to make a sentence is a subject and that subject performing an action, okay? The shortest sentence in the Bible, Jesus wept. You have a subject, and that subject is a verb, right? The subject is performing something. That's all you need for a sentence. That's all you kind of need for a topic sentence. The problem, though, let's think about Die Hard for a second. In Die Hard, I see some of you are writing about this. In Die Hard, McClane sort of stands out via his mode of dress. He looks different from everybody, right? That's true, and that's a complete sentence. You got McClane, and McClane is doing something. He looks different. Does anybody see a problem with that as a topic sentence?
How does he look different?
I mean, we could get into that in the there's a bigger problem if that's our topic. I'm gonna say it again. You guys are distracting the shit out of me.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's killing me. But if we said McClane stands out from everybody in the movie via his mode of dress, what's the problem with that as a topic sentence? This is not a trick question. There's a big problem with that topic sentence. What do you mean?
Where she stands out.
Yeah, it's banal. If we're going to be nice about it, you were kind of being nice when you say it's obvious. It's basically summary, right? He does stand out. It's not an argument. But the point I'm making is, at base, you need kind of what you're looking at in the paragraph. So if our evidence happened to be something about the wife beater or the no shoes or just any of the ways he stands out in the film, okay? You could start there with your topic sentence. McClane stands out when it comes to everybody else in the movie via his mode of dress. That's a complete sentence. The problem is it's not an argument. To form an argument, you need a last piece, and this comes from you, not from the movie. Okay, and this is what you'll find in that bottom third. So McClane stands out when compared to everyone else in the film via his mode of dress, which highlights, I'm going to say, some aspect of his middle class background. That some aspect, by the way, would be whatever argument we figure out in the paragraph. Does that make some sense? So again, you can start with an observation because you got to. You got to start with the text. That's just what you do. John's mode of speech. Say we quote him when he says "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker." Great line in the film. John's mode of speech also marks him as different in the like when compared to everybody else. Again, that's not an argument yet. That's pretty true. It's pretty obvious, right? Well, what is that difference? If you can describe that, if you can even name it in some way, you probably have an argument because that's not laid out in the movie. I'll give you one more example. I might be redundant at this point, but I'm gonna give you one more. John is clearly upset when he discovers that his wife has gone back to her maiden name. Stefan, what's the problem with that, if that's a topic sentence?
It's too obvious too.
Yeah. He is upset. You don't have to prove that. That's obvious. It's summary. Well, what does his being upset maybe mean? What does it maybe tell us about his worldview or the kind of person he represents? If you can tell me that in a sentence, again, now you have an argument, now you have a topic sentence. You follow? So start with the film and try to pinpoint whatever aspect of it you're interested in. Put your finger right on that. That you can do that in a very small set of words. And then all you got to do is tell me why it matters. You do that, you have a topic sentence. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Other questions? Those are good questions from that table, apparently. Arlie, you got one for us? You want to? Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
So it's like the main theme of our essay probably be masculinity.
That have to be. I mean,
Could it be family?
it could be, for sure. I mean, the way these classes function is we kind of always have to pick a theme, and there's good and bad that goes with that, but the good side of it is it gives us a focus, right? So think about everything we've talked about this semester in terms of texts. Like, obviously Vonnegut talks about masculinity, obviously Fairchild does, obviously Die Hard does, but they talk about many other things as well. But it just helps us when it comes to discussion because it gives us like a tunnel we can all walk down together, okay? Now, all that is to say, do I think it helps us as a class, even at this point in the semester, to continue walking down that tunnel? Yeah, but if you have a different idea, different argument you want to make, yeah, all I ever care about is you make a legitimate argument and you prove it in the ways that we talk about and you do your best to use the structures prove anything to me and I'll be agog. That's a great word. You guys don't know what that means, do you? Agog is a great word. A-G-O-G. It's old. Basically it means you're so sort of amazed, you just, that's what it means.
That looks like it.
Yeah.
That even mean like that.
It's like a boss. Dark Souls boss.
Agog, yeah, well, yeah. Anyway, good questions. Any other questions? Okay. Trying to think of anything else. Oh, careful. Trying to think of anything. I'll review very quickly because sometimes you guys will surprise me with the things you forget here on the last paper. I understand why. I have a great quick cautionary tale I'm going to tell you about one of my wife's students actually. Oh shit! Break in. Go for it.
How do you, like when you quote or paraphrase the movie,
Mhm.
but Die Hard in it?
McTiernan. As a rule, I mean, there are some cases that this doesn't work, but most movies, we consider the director the author. Now, the good news is with a movie, you don't have to do timestamps, none of that nonsense. So, parentheses, McTiernan, close parentheses. That's it. That's all you need. Much easier. Okay, so the cautionary tale, real quick. Ah, damn! It's all good. I honestly mean it's okay. Go ahead.
So, how can you use how can you paraphrase a movie scene as evidence for your paragraph?
Can you tell us which one you're thinking about, just so we have the no, or you just,
I just got an example, like, when they're arguing
uh-huh.
in the office.
Yeah.
Like, how would you paraphrase that and then use that as evidence?
Oh, okay. It's gonna sound like I'm being an asshole here. I'm not. You kind of have to paint us a word picture. Do you know what I mean? Like something we didn't talk a lot about, but you absolutely could. Holly's mode of dress, right? I mean, granted, it's like super 80s and ridiculous, but it's the 80s, so that's what people look like. But she's dressed much more powerfully, authoritatively than McClane is, right? She got the shoulder pads and the fucking hair. Like it's a look that communicates certain ideas, and those are important. You can't quote that. You just describe it. You tell us what it looks, and you, again, same way you work with any evidence. You tell us what it looks like in this case because it's visual, and then you tell us what any of that means. So it works the same way. You just don't use quotation marks in this case. Also, I think you might be wondering about this given that it came right after Maria's question. In most cases, you wouldn't have to cite that because we know you're talking about the movie. You got to cite a specific quotation because it's a quotation. I mean, there's ways you don't have to, but we're not going to go down that path. And I'll tell you when in doubt, cite. But if you're describing a scene in a movie and you tell me something like, Holly's shoulder pads, make her look a little bit like a samurai. Anyway, I know you're talking about Die Hard because you mentioned Holly, so you don't have to give me the citation. And one other quick point I'll give you. Please, if you're going to describe something from a scene to me, don't describe the whole scene. That's a very easy trap for you guys to fall into. So at some point in your process, if you're describing part of a scene, say the fight that he has with Holly, the same way we talk about quotations. Think about sometimes you guys have really long quotations. Usually, when we look at those on the board, you don't use that whole quotation. You use a line or two at most, right? And what do we always do? We cut the rest. Just cut the rest. You can do the same thing. If you give me a really long summary of that fight, which you absolutely could, then go back when you write the paragraph and say, okay, what did I actually talk about? Because, I mean, really, you could sum up that scene quite easily. In the scene where McClane makes an ass of himself in front of his wife, or something, you sum that up in half a sentence and then get us to what you want to focus on. I answered your question about 3 different ways, but did I cover it?
Yeah, so if
Yes.
you would say in the scene where he says something immature or something like that, you can do that, right? When he hits his head.
Yeah, at the end of McClane and Holly's fight, when McClane bangs his head against the wall, notes his own immaturity, we realize McClane realizes his own mistake, so, and then from there, you're rolling with your argument. Yeah. And that's all it would take, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions? Well, you said no before. You had questions. All right, cautionary tale. Last paper this semester, this is a couple years ago. I understand what it feels like to turn in a last paper of the semester. It's pretty great. It's pretty great. One of my wife's students, stupidly, turned in their last paper and then just deleted everything off their laptop, like as an act of celebration. Right? Back in the olden times, I guess this would have been like taking your notebook and throwing it in a fire, like kind of. Which again, on some level, I guess I get. Unfortunately, Turnitin didn't accept, like it didn't go through. Yeah. Yeah. So, a couple things to take away from there. Number one, don't delete your shit. Just don't do it. It might feel good. Celebrate a different way. Find another way. Go play frisbee golf or something. Find a different way to celebrate. Okay? And two, I thought that was the stupidest thing I could think of. It's a thing people do.
You're that guy.
At the risk of insulting anyone. Look, I'm not, but it's dumb. Anyway, where was I? Oh, so don't celebrate like that. But that could be a metaphor for a lot of things. Just keep in mind, we're at the end of the semester, but we are not done with the semester yet. You don't want to sort of throw all your clothes off and run screaming through the hall yet. That day can come, but it's a couple weeks out. So like you got to stay strong for now. Okay? Okay. The other stuff with the paper, MLA, you guys get pretty funny at the end of the semester. Don't forget a works cited page. I don't ding you as hard as a lot of other professors would. Like honestly, the rule of thumb back in my day was like a letter grade. If you're missing the word, I know. But so still, I take off like 2 points if you don't have something like that. If you don't have it, keep those 2 points, right? Like things like this. Just check before you turn the thing in. Make sure it goes through. All that cool stuff. Yeah. Other than that, what we were gonna do today, which kind of allows me to go home and lie down, which is what I'm about to do. We were gonna peer review and then draft, and I was gonna watch you do those things like a creep. That's what it feels like. I just stand up here and I look at you, and sometimes you guys look at me, and I'm like, I'm watching you. Like it's weird. What I would tell you is, as I always do when I let you out early, I understand you're not gonna leave here and get to work. Like I understand that that's very unlikely, but I will tell you, I will recommend to you that the time you have as a result of me letting you out of here in probably the next 3 minutes is time that you have. And it doesn't have to be right now, but that time, maybe it's tomorrow, you know, in the morning, whatever morning is for you crazy people. 2 o'clock, you know, but like whenever that is, sit down, half an hour, just get some work done. Do the peer review. I even, I always send the peer review questions to you guys. So if you don't do the peer review, which some of you don't, you can still have the questions for yourself. They can be helpful. They can be guiding in that way. They're just nice little double check things here at the end of the process, okay? I would recommend that to you. The papers due Wednesday night at 11:59. Do your best. If something happens, talk to me, you know, keep me in the loop. Other than that, all we're doing Thursday, we have a project. You guys freak out when you hear that word. It's not super involved. It's not meant to be, okay? We'll talk more about it then, but just know the paper is the real thing, okay? The project matters, but not nearly as much as the paper. Yeah. Anything else for me before I let you guys go? I know. All right. Well, in that case, I'll see you Thursday. I wish you well. Thank you.